Okay, ready? All right. Call the meeting to order. The June 13th, 2022 meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Republic, Missouri. Will you call the roll, one of you?
Commissioner Alexander, Commissioner Campbell, Commissioner DeBrava,
Here.
Commissioner Ellis,
Here.
Commissioner Hyder, Commissioner Mann,
Here.
Commissioner Pennell.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. The first item of business is to look at the agenda for the meeting and determine whether or not there are any changes that need to be made to it. Any revisions to it? If not, somebody make a motion.
Motion to approve.
I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Pennell,
Aye.
and Commissioner Ellis.
Aye.
Thank you.
Next item of business is the approval of the minutes of the April 11th, 2022 Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Those of you that were here, look at it and see if there are any changes that need to be made, anything that needs to be made to it. If so, make a motion. If not, make a motion.
Motion to approve.
Thank you. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you. Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Pennell,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.
Thank you.
All right, it looks like we have two hearings today, and we have a number of people here who may be interested in speaking one way or another. I'm going to ask Chris if he would please read the hearing procedures, the public hearing procedures. You need to listen carefully. I'll try and repeat anything that isn't super important, because there are some issues here that for us to do this efficiently, we need to have it abided by.
Good evening. The Planning and Zoning Commission holds public hearings as required by law and provides recommendations to City Council on matters relating to land use planning, zoning, and the subdivision of land. Any person who has an interest in the subject matter of a hearing will have the opportunity to provide testimony and present evidence to the Commission during the public hearing. Speakers are required to conduct themselves in an orderly and respectful manner. Disruptive behavior, including applause, yelling, speaking out of turn, and other inappropriate behaviors will not be tolerated. Additionally, the following applies to any person addressing the Commission. Speakers are limited to 5 minutes unless authorized additional time by the chairperson. Speakers must speak at the podium unless previous arrangements have been made by the chairperson. Speakers must legibly print their name and address on the sign-in sheet at the podium prior to speaking. Speakers must begin by stating their name and address. Speakers should speak clearly and into the microphone. The chairperson will announce the subject of the hearing, followed by a report from staff. The chairperson will then open the public hearing to the applicant, followed by those in favor of the application, and then those opposed to the application. The chairperson will close the public hearing. During this time, the Commission will discuss amongst themselves. The public may not address the Commission after the close of the public hearing unless requested by the chairperson. The Planning and Zoning Commission shall base their recommendation and/or decision on information and evidence presented during the public hearing. This decision, if required by the application, will be forwarded in writing to City Council for further consideration.
Thank you, Chris. I'll call the first public hearing. It's PDD 22-004, a public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 100.64 acres located at the 800 to the 1500 block of West State Highway 174, West State Highway 174, from Sandstone West Plan Development District PDD to Prairie Ridge Plan Development District PDD. Chris or Karen.
Thank you, Chairman. The property subject to this rezoning application is comprised of approximately 100.64 acres of land located between the 800 and 1500 blocks of West State Highway 174. The property is currently utilized as farmland with several agricultural structures. The applicant is proposing the rezoning of this property to a planned development district, or PDD, to allow for a residential mixed-use development consisting of one area of multifamily dwellings consisting of 15.90 acres and 3 areas of single-family residential lots, which is approximately 84.74 acres, and also regional detention. The development plan also contains new water, sanitary sewer, and stormwater systems to support the development, the required secondary arterial street, and local streets to support the development. Specifically, the applicant's proposal includes the following elements. The total area of the Area A, which is single-family residential, again is 84.74 acres and is a total of 291 lots. The permitted use in this area is single-family residential. Area B is multifamily residential. This is 15.90 acres and consists of 300 total multifamily residential dwelling units. The Builds Department and the city's technical review team, when reviewing a narrative for a PDD and also development plan, looks at consistency with the Planned Development District regulations and ordinance. We also review the city's comprehensive plan and also adopted master plans of the city. The city's comprehensive plan generally encourages the expansion of residential development through proactive rezoning of land at appropriate locations. Appropriate locations are described generally throughout the plan with regard to the relationship of land at particular locations to infrastructure capable of supporting various intensities and densities of uses. The 2021 comprehensive plan and also the land use plan generally identifies goals and objectives relating to development as follows. Support market conditions to develop a greater variety of residential options, and support new development that is well connected to the existing community. We also look at compatibility with surrounding land uses. This site specifically is surrounded by existing agricultural and residential zone properties and uses. To the north, we have Greene County Agricultural and also Sandstone West PDD. To the south, we have medium density single-family residential. To the east, we have medium density single-family residential. And to the west, we have Greene County Agricultural Residential and also Greene County Agricultural. The land uses permitted in the applicant's proposal are considered to be generally compatible with the surrounding agricultural and residential zone properties and uses in proximity to the subject parcel. We also look at the city's ability to serve a potential development site. The site is in proximity to City of Republic sanitary sewer and water service with existing points of connection to the east in the Sandstone East subdivision, to the south via water main parallel to West State Highway 174, and an existing sanitary sewer lift station on the south side of West State Highway 174. The majority of the development will be served by a new lift station constructed by the developer, designed to serve the development. This is potentially located in the northwestern portion of the development. The effluent will travel from the new lift station into an existing gravitary sewer system in the Sandstone subdivision to the east, which then flows directly to the wastewater treatment facility. A small portion of Phase 4 will also be served by a gravity flow to existing lift station number 2, that's the one on State Highway 174 to the south, which is then pumped into an existing gravity sanitary sewer system flowing directly again to the wastewater treatment facility. The development will be served by a looped water system connecting to existing water mains parallel to West State Highway 174 and also to existing water mains serving the Sandstone subdivision to the east. The exact location and size of the water mains and the sewer mains required to serve the development will be determined during the infrastructure or engineering design process. The water system, the proposed lift station, the existing lift station, and also the wastewater treatment facility do have sufficient capacity to serve the proposed development at full build-out. The development plan includes the construction and dedication of a new secondary arterial within the development area. This road is identified on the city's major thoroughfare and transportation plans, in addition to multiple local streets that serve the lots within the development itself. The applicant performed a traffic impact study, or a TIS. This was reviewed by MoDOT and also the City of Republic, and this was used to analyze the impact of the traffic generated by the proposed development. The results of the TIS indicates the proposed full build-out of the development warrants several transportation improvements on West State Highway 174. These improvements are identified in phases 3 and 4 of the development and include an eastbound left turn lane and westbound right turn lane in phase 3 of the development, and also an eastbound left turn lane during phase 4 of the development. Additional improvements at the intersection of South Farm Road 67 and also West State Highway 174 include a westbound left-hand turn lane. The city's transportation improvements required by the development include a left-hand turn lane from southbound Kansas onto eastbound West State Highway 174. These 3-lane sections of Kansas for left turn lanes are required internally to the subdivision. The city will be working with MoDOT and the applicant throughout the development process, including during construction of the required transportation improvements to support the development. No parcel within the development itself will have direct access to State Highway 174 or the secondary arterial street. The development plan contains areas designated for stormwater retention and detention designed to accommodate stormwater generated by the development itself. Additional stormwater areas and/or easements may be required through the engineering design process. The stormwater retention and detention areas, the drainage easements, and also all open space and common area will be owned and maintained by the developer and/or a property owners association. The parcel does contain a floodplain or special flood hazard area identified on the development plan itself. You'll also notice that the subject parcel does contain several identified sinkholes. These are also identified on the development plan with the 30-foot required buffer. In addition, if the development plan does receive approval from City Council, additional elements of code compliance evaluated at the time of infrastructure or engineering design impacting the development of the subject property include the city's zoning regulations, the adopted fire code, and also the building code. All elements not previously discussed will again be reviewed during the infrastructure design phase. Staff does consider the proposed zoning map amendment or rezoning to a planned development district to be generally consistent with the goals and objectives of the comprehensive and land use plans, generally consistent with the trend of development in the vicinity of the site, generally consistent with surrounding land uses, and able to be served by municipal utilities. Specifically, the proposed development can be adequately served by the city's municipal water and sanitary sewer systems and the city's transportation network. Based upon this analysis, staff is recommending approval of the planned development district.
Thank you, Karen. Let me review how I'm going to handle this, how we handle this. The first group that I will call, if there is anyone, will be the applicant or the applicant's representative. Then I'll call for anyone that's in favor of the application after that. Then we proceed to those that might be opposed to the application. So you'll be given 5 minutes. I think we have a timer. We're going to set up a timer so that you're not obligated to use the full 5 minutes if you feel you've said what you want to say in 2. But we will certainly be happy to listen to anyone that has anything to say about this hearing or the next. So with that, I'm going to call for the applicant or the applicant's representative. Come up, give your name, sign in if you have not already, and tell us what you want to tell us.
Absolutely. Good evening. My name is Ricky Haas with Olson. My address is 550 St. Louis in Springfield. So this project is quite similar to Wilson's Valley that you guys saw a couple months ago. I think our ultimate objective here is to provide a bigger variety of residential options for the city of Republic. We placed the R3 multifamily down kind of central in the project and wrapped it with our own single-family lots. That way we're not building the apartments near adjacent or existing homes, keeping it a buffer there with these existing single-family lots. Karen hit on a lot of the important pieces of this. I'll mention that the minimum lot size is 55 by 110. That is roughly 6,000 square feet. Through market research and talking to home builders, that's the size of lot that's best right now for the market, first-time home buyers, that sort of thing. I want to make it restate what Karen said. This is an arterial that runs across the front, 174, and then a secondary arterial through our site. So these are high traffic roads. There's going to be a lot of traffic. That's what they're intended to have. That's why we're not connecting any single-family home driveways to them. We're not connecting any apartment driveways directly to those streets. So there will be a lot of traffic, but like stated, we did do a traffic study, and there will be improvements. There'll be turn lanes within the development on the secondary arterial. There'll be turn lanes at the intersection of 174 and Kansas, as well as a turn lane into the apartment development. All of those lengths have been accurately determined through the traffic study. We feel comfortable that the increased traffic counts out here will be handled with the improved infrastructure. Stormwater-wise, with this development, the stormwater runoff, the way it runs off now, will be the same when the development is done. The volume of water that is done by creating ponds that hold the water and release it at the same rate that it does now. As you can see on the site plan, this property has a lot of sinkholes. Those are kind of the circular blob shapes with the double lines. The inside line's the sinkhole. The outside line is the setback. So we won't be doing any grading or touching those sinkholes at all. Karen mentioned the floodplain. You can see that kind of snakes through the property on the west. That'll remain a green open space that we won't be touching. And then the lift station will sit on the north end of that floodplain. And so you're probably wondering why phase one is such a weird shape. It's kind of the north extreme portion of the project. The reason that we're doing phase one up there is because the force main needs to follow those streets from that floodplain all the way east over to the existing sandstone development. There was a question presented to us outside of this meeting. We will not need any offsite easements for that floodplain or for that force main. We had been in discussions of taking it different routes and had reached out to some landowners. We found a way to accomplish that force main without needing any offsite easements. As far as amenities, in the PDD, the single family and multifamily project will have a swimming pool with bathhouse and restrooms. It'll have a gym with workout exercise equipment, a sports court, play area, and then open space, including the floodplain and other areas that you can see on the layout. With that, I won't go back through kind of the utilities. I think Karen hit on those really well, so happy to answer any questions that you guys had on those. I know there's a lot of stuff going on with this when we're running utilities different ways and that kind of thing, but happy to answer any questions.
Now, we may have questions when we get into the discussion that we have after the hearing.
Okay. Mr. Stinger, I believe, would also like to speak, if that's all right.
Well, are you the applicant? Please come forward.
Hello, my name is Stu Stinger, and I represent the developer of this 100 acres. Just a little background on this. There was a PD that was on this called Sandstone West, and it included commercial areas, R3, R2, and single family. After looking at what Republic needs in the area because of its growth, we've decided to make that PD less intense by just going with R1 and then some R3 for apartment housing. So that's what we feel is the immediate need for Republic right now is housing out that direction. So that was our thinking in buying and purchasing the plot. Like Ricky said, it'll be a multi-phase community. It'll have covenants and restrictions, an architectural control committee. It'll have a full set of amenities, and we look forward to hopefully doing another development in Republic. Any questions?
Maybe later.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Stinger. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of this application? Please come forward.
My name is Deb Ledford. I live at 667 West Wantabo in Republic. I'm not, I am for this development, but really what I'm really would like to say is I do own property that borders borders the property. In the past, there has been a strong representation from the Westwood subdivision in resistance to developments. And so in the past, when I came to the meetings and saw what they mobilized and did, I just felt that I needed to speak out this time in favor of the developer. And I would like to point out that if there is a resistance from the Westwood subdivision, I would ask them to join our city if they'd like to have a say in how we're developing. Of course, they are citizens of Greene County. They're fine neighbors. They certainly have a say. But I would like the city to listen to the citizens more than the citizens of the county. And that's really all I have to say about our development. Actually, one more. It's not really about the development. There will come a point soon that if you don't live on the other side of the tracks of Republic, the railroad does a number on our being able to move around the town. And bringing emergency services to the other side of the tracks, if there's a train stopped, will make it a very long route if there is not an overpass or underpass for traffic for the people who live on the other side of the tracks. So anyway, that's all I really have to say, and thank you for your time.
Thank you, ma'am. We'll all go out and talk to BN, see if we can get them to do that. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Not hearing anyone. Anyone opposed to the application? Yes, sir. Come forward and tell us who you are.
My name is Bob Knutson, and I live on 199 North Tierra Drive. I'm just to the east of this proposed. I don't know how I should, I've got a bunch of questions. I don't know how we need to deal with that, one at a time, or how do you do it?
Actually, we don't answer questions during this time period. We just listen. But if you want to pose your questions, I'm sure that we will try and address those one at a time with staff when we're talking as the commission. And that will be in a public setting, so you'll hear whatever we had to say.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we wanted to try and find out was what kind of time frame is on this proposal. If you rezone it, how quick does it move forward? How long is it going to take? Because that's all a issue for us living in Sandstone right now. We also wanted to try and find out the proposed size and value of the new homes. We've heard a lot of different stories about this, whether they're going to be low income or what are they. And I think they answered the other question I had is, does the new addition have a HOA? And I think he said yes. One of the big things that we had was Bonita Street. If that's connected, and that's the one that runs into our existing subdivision, if that is connected and this goes forward, who's responsible for cleaning mud off of our subdivision streets from all the construction traffic? And, or is the construction traffic allowed to go through our subdivision? If it is connected, we would like to see, because we have a lot of kids and a lot of old people there, myself included, that we would like to see a 20-mile-an-hour speed limit or speed bumps put on that road. Now, keep in mind, the speed limit signs do not slow people down, really. Because we have people that are speeding through there right now. If we had a speed bump, that will stop that. There's, next question is there an ordinance in Republic on working days or working hours? Like, can they work on Sundays? Or can they start anytime they want to and end anytime they want to?
You're talking about on the construction?
Correct.
Okay.
Next item I had was, with the increased traffic, what will the city be doing to alleviate the traffic jams? Now, we know there's gonna be a lot of those, and especially down on 174 in Maine. It's a zoo down there right now. And it's just gonna make it worse. Another item that some of them brought up is on the new construction, if the houses are raised up higher than ours, where's the runoff from the water gonna go? I don't want it in the back of my yard. And I can see the houses being raised up a little bit so the water will run away from the houses. And if it does get run off, what's our recourse? Is the builder or developer, mainly the developer, responsible for this to alleviate that problem? Another question was, are the new homeowners allowed to hook onto our existing fences? Or can they try and do something to our existing fences? Are they allowed to paint it or do anything, being that's our fences? And then the last one was the property, how is this presently zoned right now? Is this zoned agricultural or residential? And if it's residential, why are they allowing the grass to grow so high? And I think that's all that I have.
Only 8?
Huh?
Only 8 questions?
Well, I got more
You
if you
did
want
good.
them.
Maybe the answers to these will, I mean, we won't have everybody coming up and ask the same question, because
Okay.
I've got them written down here. We'll go
Okay.
through 'em. I'll go through them with staff.
And you
We'll
said
see-
that'll come up in another meeting?
No.
Oh,
At the end of this.
We
oh.
finish this hearing, we close the hearing. As soon as everybody's had an opportunity to speak that wants to speak, we close the hearing, and then we talk in front of you in this public meeting and among ourselves.
Okay.
And we might ask questions of the applicant, we might ask questions of staff, but, I mean, the purpose is to try and inform us so that we can decide what we want to do.
Okay. Like I say, all the
So-
folks back here, majority of those are joined back up right to that
Okay.
new place.
I understand.
So,
I figured that probably was the case.
yeah. Well, thank you.
Thank you for sharing. Is there anyone else that wishes to oppose the application? Yes, ma'am?
My name's Vicki Eaton, and I live at 339 North Sierra. Bob got 5 of my questions,
Can you pull your microphone down?
so I don't need to go through those again. I'm wondering, we're fairly new to the subdivision, but I've been told that that had been tried to be developed two times? If so, why has it not been, why now? What's made it so appetizing? The growth in Republic that's going crazy? Of course, I'm opposed to it. I back right up to it. I don't want a two-story house behind me. But my one question I would like to ask, there is a row of trees behind us. Who's responsible for those trees? Would it be the applicant? Will they all come down? Do we get stuck with that, or where does that go?
Goes-
You
I'm
don't
gonna
know
answer your
either.
question. It
Yeah.
goes on the landowner. Whoever
Yeah.
the landowner is, if it's the applicant, then the applicant has it. If it's on you, I guess from what you're saying, you would like to have those trees stay.
Yes, we
So-
would.
So they're on your land, you can do what you want with the
Well,
trees
we
on your land.
fenced, of course, when we moved in, but there was a wire fence, so we've never really known who it belonged to, so, and nobody else knows, so.
There's one suggestion that I have is survey.
Yes, I thought about that too. Okay, well, that pretty much does it. I don't want it, of course. I
Understand?
love the house and the privacy behind it. I'm on the corner of Bonita, so it's gonna bring a lot of traffic our way.
Well, thank you for coming and sharing with us.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Is there anyone else that wishes to oppose? Yes, sir? Come forward. Sorry. Two sirs at the same time. We'll get you next.
Two sirs don't make a right.
My name's David Amos. I'm new to the area. I've lived over there off Pond Creek. It's down 174,
Address, please.
6513 South Farm Road 57. There's a few things, but it's actually zoned agricultural right now, to answer your question. These are a couple of pictures from the past. These are, you can tell. Anybody who tries to put a property in there, it's gonna be in a floodplain. All the properties that are in, Charlotte Mill that they put in, there's 85 plus properties in there they'd put in over the last couple of years. All that water is coming right through there. And if you allow another subdivision up, imagine all the traffic like that gentleman said.
Do you want to submit those?
Yes, go ahead.
We put these, attach these? Okay, we will attach these to
And I
those.
wasn't trying to be nosy, but I seen that gentleman there. He's got a different map. If you look at his map, that thing's littered with sinkholes. That whole property's, it wouldn't be good for zoning, for residential. I don't know how anybody could get past that. That's all I've got.
Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else that is in opposition? Oh, sir, you were, sorry. Excuse me just a minute. Karen, how do you want to do this? Do you want to just take these and,
Yes.
okay, I'll put them right up here. Thank you for waiting.
Oh, no problem. Alan Evans. I live at 247 North Ladera in Sandstone. We moved to Sandstone about 4.5 years ago because we liked how quaint our subdivision was and how nice everybody was. And I think Mr. Knudsen hit most of the points that I was, going to possibly bring up. Of course, they live on that street, so it affects them a whole lot more. I'm 2 streets over, but in Sandstone. My biggest thing is the traffic issue. Like they were saying, 174 is a zoo right now. You add another, 600 homes with 1,200 cars. If you've seen 174 at Maine, when the school gets out or comes in, you can't go any direction because the cars are lined up all the way on both ways. The same thing on 174, the influx of the traffic there by our subdivision. And the biggest thing is, like I said, like they were saying, on North Tierra at Bonita. If they're not going to be part of the original plan that years ago when the original developer did it as Sandstone, they're going to be, what is it called, Prairie Ridge. They need to dead end Bonita and make their own entrances and exits on their property So we don't have the influx in our subdivision, which interferes with all the kids that we have there, the older people, there are people that walk in there. It's secured. So, for instance, I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with the July the 4th. We have our own little parade in our subdivision. You know, we don't have to worry about all the traffic, the in and out traffic and everything. It's the privacy of our subdivision that makes it so quaint and why we like it so much. So that's my biggest thing is the traffic. And if they could just dead end that Bonita Street, you know, there at Tierra and make their own entrances and exits so we don't have to deal with their influx of traffic, both in construction and residential and multifamily, it would make our life a whole lot easier. So thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Anyone else that's opposed that wishes to speak? Well, I don't see anybody else rushing up, so, or hands up, so I'm gonna close this hearing. We'll now go, oh, I'm sorry. Come on up.
My name is Mike Ray. I live at 5136 South Farm Road 67. And I would like to have one of the drawings that everybody's got that shows all the development. Because my land adjoins, I guess it's that phase, the very far phase over there. And part of that floodplain comes through my land. And I would like to know, I had issues with what they're gonna develop, how it's gonna be taken care of, because I don't want the lift station and everything. I'm concerned about the lift station and everything, right? I guess it's gonna be right in the corner of my property in there. So I like to get more information on the lift station and find out how that's gonna be addressed. And I'm also, with everybody else, concerned with the traffic on 174 and, like I said, Main Street and getting out, plus the development of the land right there. You know, they're doing all this big subdivision out the other side of Republic. So I just, like I said, I like more information, a copy of the map, and if people want to get with me and talk with me, I like to, the developer or whatever, I like to talk to them. That's all I've got.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ray. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak opposed to the, okay, ma'am? Oh, we've got two ma'ams now. I'll come to the left side in a minute.
I did sign up as well, and we've been long-term residents of Republic for
Please state your name and
Oh, sorry,
address.
Colleen Dorsey, 5185 South Westwood Drive. We're the Westwood neighbors that were spoken of earlier. We we've been at this home less than a year. And so we lived in the city limits for 27 years, and we are about like the city growing. We came here when it was a smaller area, and we are all for the growth, but our concerns are that we do back up against a large piece of that property. And we're wondering about some things that might happen and how the runoff's gonna happen in our property, the fence line and other things that people have discussed. But the Westwood community isn't all here this evening, but I don't think it's because they don't want to be a part of it. We haven't chosen to be a part of the city, and that is because we love where we're at. We all have about 3 acres of homes, of land for our homes. There are only 8 homes in our area, and so that quaintness that you all talked about is also our quaintness and why we chose that space. We lived next door to our neighbors where we could hear them and see them next door. We don't have that anymore. But now with this new piece coming, we're concerned that we're gonna have lots of neighbors and lots of noise and lots of things that are gonna be taking over that little quaint area that we purchased less than a year ago, and are just wondering how that's gonna be handled. And we'd love to have a conversation with you as well. Thank you for your time. Thank you, Mr. Stenger. Oh, did you want me to ask? I forgot. One more thing. There's a dead end at our street. That's where my home's at. We don't have a copy of the map either to see if there's going to be an extension from Westwood Drive out to 174. And that is a concern because we have 6 grandchildren and they love to play right there. And all the neighborhood kids have that safety of that dead end street so that they can play without having to have all that extra traffic coming through.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, thank you. My name is Kathy White, and we live at 374 North Ladera. So we're on the other side of where the building would be. However, I second, and I think many of the folks here also, when we moved into the subdivision, it'll be a year ago, the first of this coming July, we moved in there because we knew that it was full of older people, and we knew that it was a quiet residential area. We did not have to worry about theft or, people taking things out of our yard. And if you drive through there, you'll know that a lot of people have decorative things in their yards, flowers and all kinds of things. So that was never a concern, where now, at least for us, it is. We back up to the housing project that would be on the other side of us, would be east of us. There is a privacy fence that goes all the way the length of that, and there are trees there that kind of buffer that, but there is absolutely no entrance into our subdivision from that neighborhood, and there are no issues there. And I don't know if we could do a show of hands, because not everybody wants to get up here, but the number of people that are concerned about that Bonita Street opening up to that subdivision, should you approve it. We don't want it. We don't want that subdivision to come into our neighborhood. There, like at the end of our street's a little cul-de-sac that goes around. There are little bitty kids that play down there. And, I'm not on Tierra, but apparently there are a lot of small kids that play over there also. It's a very private, conservative neighborhood. And to open it up to hundreds of people to flow through our neighborhood, anyone can imagine the problems and the situations that could arise for us potentially. And so we are not in favor of it, and I don't think any of the people behind us, except maybe this lady, is in favor of that being opened up to us. And then the other thing is, I would never willingly buy a house in a subdivision that I knew was surrounded by sinkholes. How many situations have we seen on the TV, like in Nixa several years ago, where houses fell into the ground because there were sinkholes underneath them, and they didn't know. Nobody knew that. So I believe it's possible that we don't know all the sinkholes that are in that neighborhood. If it's already full of sinkholes, we don't know how many other sinkholes would be there. So then what happens when houses start falling into the ground? And then the other thing that we have concern about is, are these homes, particularly the apartments, going to be low income subsidy type housing, duplexes? Are they going to be income subsidy housing also? So we have genuine concerns. And as you can see, most of us here, with the exception of a few, are older and are retired and are home and like our privacy. If you would just please consider that in your decision. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else that's opposed that wishes to speak? I think we've gotten to the bottom of the barrel, maybe? I don't mean that. That's poorly said. I think we've heard a list, and we'll go through it. So I'm going to close this hearing. I think actually on my list there's several that are pretty easy answers, and I think I'm going to give a shot at trying some. The water runoff is one that is pretty standard. Or maybe I'll let Karen or Chris talk to that, or one of you talk to the water runoff issue. The way that it's handled with new development is consistent in the city.
Sure. Thank you, Chairman. So stormwater detention or retention at the point of any type of subdivision, or in this case, particularly a planned development district, the city's current ordinances require the runoff that leaves this particular site to be less than or equal to the runoff that is generated by the site currently. So in this particular development plan, there are several areas of detention or retention where the site itself will be graded. The storm gutters will get the water to these locations, which then will eventually flow out to either the floodplain or state right-of-way. So no additional runoff will be generated from this site onto adjacent property owners.
So said differently, there's an engineering effort made to make a determination of what is being running off of that property now.
Correct. The engineers do a hydraulic analysis of the runoff from the property now, and then they will do the same thing with the actual infrastructure and engineer design plans that show exactly where that water is going.
Right. And then the development can't make that runoff bigger.
Correct. So nothing that is currently leaving the site to any adjacent property owners, that water will be no greater than it is today. And in reality, what we typically see once we get retention and detention is typically it actually improves any type of runoff to adjacent properties, because now that stormwater runoff is streamlined into channels getting to a location where it's sitting and then waiting and then being discharged to either floodplain or right-of-way.
Another question was the proposed size and values of the houses, and it was said in a couple of different ways. I think low income, subsidized housing, and then just what are the size and the values of the housing. Can you explain that?
Yes. So the city's zoning regulations, specifically the PDD regulations, we do not address a size requirement, a minimum size requirement for residential structures, nor do we address a price point. What the comprehensive plan and land use plan do is encourage price points and quality of homes across a wide spectrum. So that is after we went through the comprehensive plan exercise the last couple of years. We are seeing that not only is there a need for the lower end of the spectrum, there's also a need for the higher end of the spectrum. What we do see is the developers are doing their own analysis to determine the market conditions in our city, and they are making the investment in the types of properties that they see will go to market very quickly and be sold.
There was a question about limiting the zoning or what the zoning was going to be. This would be a PDD, a planned development district. And a planned development district is a bit different than what you normally think in the old line of residential zoning. In here you have R1, R2, R3 zoning in Republic historically, but a PDD is different. Karen, can you explain that?
Correct. So a PDD is actually kind of a hybrid of a preliminary plat and a rezone. What the PDD does allow for is a unique mixture of both property sizes, so intensities and densities of uses, various permitted uses, and an arrangement of property that is typically very difficult under traditional subdivision and zoning regulations. So for this development in particular, they have a mixture of single-family residential and also multifamily residential, which would not be possible under traditional zoning. So again, the PDD model itself allows for that unique mixture of mixed use intensities and densities. What it also does is allow for an opportunity to address other factors. In this case, this particular piece of property has a multitude of design considerations that need to be taken into account. So you have 7 known sinkholes. We actually require a sinkhole analysis by a registered geologist or civil engineer. That was done on this particular site. We do know that the locations that are identified as sinkholes are actually sinkholes. And what you see around that is the 30-foot buffer requirement. As I mentioned in the actual staff report, that 30-foot buffer means that no actual development, including general grading or any type of building, can be done within that particular location. The other major consideration on this particular piece of property is you have a large area of floodplain. So that is typically very difficult to design around because the floodplain has a particular channel. So in this particular development, you see a third of it to the west, basically bisecting the development plan itself, and then the rest of it, the 2/3 to the east. So the sinkholes and then the floodplain were major design considerations. Those were both factors, again, of going to a PDD model instead of the traditional rezoning and subdivision ordinance requirements. And I'd be happy to address just a couple of other things.
Go
I
ahead.
did take notes. So as far as a time frame for actual development, the PDD ordinance requires all development to happen within a period of 8 years. So if he gets started, they have basically 8 years to continue build out. Should build out not occur within that 8 years, then it would come back before a public hearing to either do a new type of design or it would just fade out and no design and no construction would be allowed at that point. As I mentioned, the city does require an HOA or property owners association to take care of all common space areas and detention within the actual development itself. So on this particular development, that'll be the entire floodplain area, all of the sinkholes, all of the retention and drainage areas. The city does have some regulations regarding building. It is 6 a.m. to dark. It can occur 7 days a week. The Bonita Street connection to the east, which is the Sandstone East, that is a requirement of the city. The city's subdivision regulations do require that all development extend public streets to the cardinal directions. So when the Sandstone East development was first approved, it did require that Bonita Street directly to the west. With this development, we are requiring that connection. The city itself does not want dead-end connections to public streets. So that is a requirement, as is the connection to the Westwood subdivision in Greene County to the north. As far as miscellaneous items that were brought up, new houses connecting to existing fences, that is really a consideration between property owners. The fence itself, if it is on your property, that is your fence. Someone can make a connection up to the point that their property ends.
Just a comment on that.
I'm sorry?
Just a comment on that. If the fence has been built on your property, and normally when you have a fence built, they build it in 6 inches or something, or so from the property line. If it's on your property, it is your fence, for good or bad. And that means you have the full responsibility for maintenance of the fence. And you can tell whoever it is that's your neighbor you don't want them hooking on, or you can make whatever requirements you feel are important. But that's your fence. But it's a purely neighbor to neighbor kind of thing. And you may benefit from having a connection onto the fence, you may not benefit, but those are things you have to decide. Go ahead, Karen.
There were a couple of questions regarding the current zoning of the property. Again, this property is already zoned a planned development. It was the Sandstone West planned development. It is not zoned agricultural. One other item regarding Bonita Street, the city engineer does set the speed limits for all city streets. That would just be a consideration. Typically, we do not install speed bumps, but again, that is just purely a consideration of the city engineer and would not be a parameter for true discussion for a planned development district. The sinkholes I had mentioned, again, the city requires that 30-foot buffer. The floodplain was mentioned several times. That was a design consideration. A lot of the stormwater generated is going directly into the floodplain after it is detained in the detention areas. The other major item is traffic considerations. Chris, can you go to that other development plan? I did go over a number of the design considerations that were addressed in the traffic study. I do realize that was a lot. It may not have made sense going through that, but you can see on State Highway 174, there will be left-hand and right-hand turn lanes required. Those were required through the actual traffic impact study itself. What that traffic impact study does is it looks at the actual traffic generated by this particular development. It assigns numbers that are reviewed by an engineer for each parcel of land, and then looks at the existing traffic condition. So during the different phases of actual development, there will be a multitude of transportation improvements required on State Highway 174, also on South Farm Road 67, and then all of the internal requirements for the actual development itself. So all of the local streets, and then on the secondary arterial, which is going from State Highway 174 directly north, there will also be left-hand turn lanes directly onto those new public streets. So again, we are confident in the traffic study itself. It's reviewed by the city engineer. Additionally, it is also reviewed by MoDOT engineers. We do take their input into our analysis and also our recommendation. If there's anything I missed, or if you have any additional questions, I'll be happy to answer.
Karen, I think Bob had also asked about construction traffic. If there are any
Yes.
limitations to the traffic for construction vehicles.
Yes, thank you for bringing that up. So we actually will require a construction traffic entrance, most likely for phase one. That'll actually be the location of probably Kansas Avenue. So the traffic for the actual infrastructure construction will have to enter the property via that construction entrance. And what that does is it eliminates any opportunity for that big equipment to be entering the site via the local streets connecting in. And honestly, all of those streets are city streets. We want the heavy equipment, the construction traffic to go through a specified entrance. And that also typically eliminates a lot of the mud that is generated onto city streets from actual construction sites.
And one other question I heard, I think it was Vicky had asked about the trees. The trees, those are a function of the landowner, and is it their discretion on whether to keep those trees or not?
Correct. So any tree located on any person's property, the removal of that tree or keeping that tree is really their discretion. So that would not be something that we would consider during the actual rezoning. So I would encourage any property owners that have any concerns regarding trees adjacent to the site to speak with the developer.
To the extent that the tree isn't immediately adjacent to an electrical easement, which sometimes the CU guy back here may know about it. But sometimes it won't be you. It'll be Liberty or somebody else that comes. They'll want to trim it for you. But that's a different story. It didn't have anything to do with this property.
I think there was one last question too regarding the lift station. And if you look at the area on the north side of the floodplain, that is the proposed location of the the lift station itself. Again, this lift station is going to be constructed for the majority of this subdivision. The lift station is something that is designed in accordance with City of Republic requirements and is reviewed by our city engineer. It is also required to be permitted through Missouri Department of Natural Resources, their sanitary sewer division. So there are multiple layers of design considerations and also permitting required prior to the construction of a lift station.
Okay.
Something else that might come to light is, do you have any review of what the old PDD entailed compared to what this new PDD entails, as this was zoned as a PDD beforehand? So this was all planned for development already at one point. Can you give any light into what that was beforehand?
So yes, the Sandstone West PDD, it is a number of years old, and it was a true mixed-use development with commercial components along State Highway 174. I believe it did have single-family duplex and also apartments. So it really had all of the array of zoning permitted uses within it itself.
Any other questions in the commission?
One other question I think Kathy raised. We don't have any insight into whether these apartments will be income subsidized.
Correct. That is not something that the city has any authority over as far as land use decisions. I would encourage anybody that has those types of questions to talk to the developer themselves. We have not been given any of that information. I don't believe that's the case. But again, those are not typically questions that we ask for a land use analysis.
Any other questions from the,
Just one last comment. The picture that was provided, I think that was David. Can you tell me when that picture was taken, approximately? 2 years ago. Thank you.
And just for reference, I can tell the one like where it's at on, I think it's 174 and Farm Road 67. But the other one, I know this is really far away, but do you know which, like what area this other one was at? Okay.
Thank you.
okay. Gentlemen, do you have any discussion? More than we've already had?
No, that hasn't been covered.
It might just be helpful to inform the people on the process of what happens
I'd be glad to.
after we discuss this.
We're gonna vote here in a minute. I think if somebody makes a motion, somebody seconds it, which I feel comfortable will happen. If we vote, it's a recommendation to council, and council will then have a separate public hearing on this, a do-over as it might be if whoever wants to do it. So, I'm not saying how the vote's gonna go, because I don't know, but that's the way it works.
But this is a vote for a recommendation on zoning in accordance with the zoning laws that the city currently has. Does it match with what we are doing? Council is the one that actually approves the zoning. Am I correct?
Yes, and if I may add just one item, the city council, the next meeting is next Tuesday, June 19th. That'll be the first reading. This is the only public hearing. There will not be another opportunity to speak in regards to the rezoning application. And then the city council will vote at the second reading, which right now is scheduled for July 19th. And that is the meeting that the decision from city council will happen.
And it will go to council no matter what we vote.
Correct.
It's either with our recommendation or not. Okay. Anybody have a motion?
Motion to vote?
Tell me what your motion is.
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the vote, to recommend the approval of an application to change the zoning classification of approximately 100.64 acres located at the 800 to 1500 block of West State Highway 174 from Sandstone West Plan Development District, PDD, to Prairie Ridge Plan Development District. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Councilman Mann,
Aye.
Councilman DeBrava,
Aye.
Councilman Ellis,
Aye.
Councilman Pennell.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is our second, if I can read it, because I've written all over this. Thank you all for coming. Very much appreciate your comments. Thank you. Should have written on the back.
There was a lot to write down. There was a lot to write down. So.
Thank you for listening to us.
Well, thank you for coming. Okay. Go to our second. Our second hearing is SU 22-002, public hearing and possible vote to recommend the approval of an application for a special use permit by KO Storage of Ozark for a boat, vehicle, or self-storage facility at 909 North College Avenue. Staff.
Good evening. Chris Tabor, Principal Planner. KO Storage of Ozark LLC has applied for a special use permit to operate a boat, vehicle, and self-storage facility on the property located at 909 College Avenue. The subject property of the application is comprised approximately of 3.23 acres of land and is zoned general commercial. The lot is currently occupied by one storage facility building, about 11,000 square feet, with a section of vehicle storage outside in the northwest corner of the property. The property is currently surrounded by general commercial, C2 to the north, light manufacturing, M1 to the east across College, single-family medium-density residential, R1M, to the south, light manufacturing, M1, and the wastewater treatment plant to the west across West Avenue. The applicant is requesting a special use permit to allow for the development and operation of a self-storage facility of approximately 33,690 square feet in total. At present, there is one building whose operation predates the amendment of the special use ordinance's inclusion of boat, vehicle, and self-storage facilities. Therefore, the existing operation is of legal non-conforming status. This application, were it to be approved, would bring the existing use into conformity while allowing for a future new commercial application in line with the proposed development plan. The city's special use permit ordinance, section 405.670, authorizes, upon approval of the city council, uses which are otherwise prohibited by the subject zoning district, provided appropriate conditions and safeguards which may be imposed to protect the public welfare and to conserve and protect the condition and the value of property in the neighborhood. Special use permits are required by section 405.670 for boat, vehicle, and self-storage facilities. In addition, the operator of the site will be required to have a valid business license on file with the city. This site currently has access to City of Republic water and sanitary sewer services. A new hydrant will be placed on site to ensure the fire department can provide adequate coverage to the new buildings. The hydrant will be served by a fire service line connecting to the 4-inch main along West Avenue. The fire department will be able to access the hydrant by a new gate installed on the west side of the property. The city's water system has the capacity to serve site improvement. A stormwater report was not required for this project due to the size of the project. The special use permit, if approved, would remain valid until a change in use or in the configuration of the use occurred. Changes in use or configuration would void the special use permit. Furthermore, the applicant is required to abide by the various elements outlined in the submitted site plan, as well as any additional conditions that may be placed on the permit at City Council's request. Design review of site improvements would occur during the review phase of the building permit application process. The subject will have public access on College Avenue and emergency access on West Avenue. Due to the low traffic impact of storage facilities in general, no traffic impact study was required. The subject does not contain a special flood hazard area. The subject parcel does not contain any identified sinkholes. If the special use permit is granted, the applicant will be eligible to submit for a new application for a new commercial building permit. The new commercial building permit application would then go through the review process to ensure conformance with the city's adopted codes, including but not limited to the city's zoning regulations, relevant building codes, and the fire code. This process includes meeting city regulations as they pertain to parking, screening, or buffering, lighting, stormwater, etc. Staff considers the proposed special use permit request for a storage facility in a general commercial C2 zoning district located at 909 North College Avenue to be generally consistent with the city's special use permit ordinance and able to be adequately served by the city's transportation network and the city's municipal facilities. The Builds Department analysis is performed without the benefit of evidence and testimony of a public hearing and does not account for the discretionary authority of the City Council to limit the placement and number of storage facilities in the city. Development of the subject parcel will require adherence to the city's adopted plans and ordinances. The next step in the process of development of the subject parcel upon a favorable special use permit outcome will be the development, review, and approval of a commercial building permit.
Thank you. Call the first, the applicant or the applicant's representative, if it's not the applicant, to come forward if you wish and tell us about this project. Not here? Okay, is there anyone else that's in favor of the application that wishes to speak? Come forward, sir. Tell us who you are.
My name is Robert Rail. I own the land with Rail Property Management just to the west of this proposed permit.
Could you supply your address, please?
221 West North Street. I'm not opposed to the permit. I'm not necessarily for or against it, but one thing I would like to bring to the attention of the city or the planners to be is a little bit came up in the last conversation with the traffic going to Main Street. Any more development in that area, I'm all for. I'm for Republic growing. I'm there to support that. I'm a business owner for all the reasons for that. There is 2 roads which would be on each side of the storage facility. So that would be you've got North Street coming in, Berry and College. I'm not sure there's any other gravel roads in the city or the county, but these are very dangerous roads. The police department does the best they can to patrol them. The city runs up and down them, creates quite a bit of and traffic. There's they're not paved, potholes, that type of thing. The other thing is with the schools on the Main Street area, there's no way we're going to get fire trucks, ambulances. You go there from 7:30 in the morning to 8:30 in the morning. I don't think I need to kick a cadaver at this point on how bad that area is. But as we're looking at doing more development there, which I have land there to develop too, I own almost 5 acres there. But roads on each side of us, we have to do something about the infrastructure before we put another big facility in that has more traffic. So it's more of a request that when you look at this permit, that you consider those 2 unpaved roads that the city put forth some effort to better maintain those, whether it be sewer and gutter, whether it be asphalt, to better increase that traffic flow. And then as far as the other development, something that needs, I'm aware of the schools now changing the times that they are letting kids in and out, so that maybe they're gonna help that traffic there. But, I would beg you to, as you look at these permits, when you look at that area, for the people that live there, the businesses there. I've already had to move my business partially out of there because we just can't maintain, we can't have customers there. So I think you're gonna see businesses leave before they come in unless we address that. It's dangerous. There's times that the police won't get through there. So it's really just more of a begging you to look at that as we do something in that area, because it really needs to be addressed. And as a property owner there, you know, I'm for help any way that I can as well. So.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else that wishes to speak in favor of the application? Is there anyone that wishes to speak opposed to the application? Not seeing anybody running up to the front, so I'll close this hearing and we'll discuss.
I'll ask a question. It's come up twice. What implications, as we think about traffic, how do you take into consideration what the engineers are recommending, or just traffic patterns relative to land use? Can you speak to that?
So, great question. These are questions that come up quite often during land use hearings. This particular intersection is a state highway, so it's under control of MoDOT, also the City of Republic, and then Greene County also has maintenance and jurisdiction of Main Street directly north of the schools. We are currently working with both our organizations. They are our partner organizations on a solution. But our city engineer, Garrett Brickner, is here, and he can speak more directly regarding the concerns regarding those streets and also that intersection.
Thanks, Garrett. I appreciate it. I'm a parent who drives a child down to elementary school, so I can appreciate the traffic.
Are you one of the ones waiting there at 2:30 in the afternoon?
Every day.
So yeah, just to kind of address several of the things that came up. One of the reasons traffic studies, we typically don't require them on storage units, is because they are very minimally impactful compared to other commercial uses. I would say they are an outlier compared to general commercial uses with how little traffic they actually generate on a daily basis. College Avenue is, I believe, the only dirt road or gravel road in the city. It has been on my list specifically to address for a long time. And I am happy to say that it is in our 3-year paving plan to get that addressed. So that will be addressed soon, thanks to the sales tax that recently passed that allowed us to properly fund our police and fire, which allowed us to put that money back into the street department where it belonged, which is allowing us to get into paving and general maintenance of the roads as they should be. The other thing, school traffic, we are absolutely working with the school on some solutions. They are going to try to stagger their start times this next year to see if that helps alleviate some of those issues, but there are other options that we are currently exploring with them as far as like rerouting, different traffic flows, things like that. And then finally, we're also working with MoDOT because they are the jurisdiction for 174. So on the last development too, we're heavily involved with them, but specifically at 174 in Maine, we're working with them on possible improvements to make that intersection function better.
To make it functional, is what you should say.
Yes.
From my perspective, coming from the middle of downtown to go to my office, I go on 174. I mean, I go on, up to that intersection and then go through on in, all the way to I-44. It's the fastest way for me to get to work. And you just don't go at a certain time, or you'll sit there. I've sat there for 20 minutes one time.
Or it shoves all the traffic in front of my building to this direction.
Absolutely. Or people start turning off, and I mean, it's a zoo.
Mary's not paved either.
Yeah.
I'm not picking on you. I just, it's just a problematic, and you could see every development that's come on, it's changed with Amazon coming in the afternoon, the traffic's all coming in, and it's backing up the opposite direction from the way I normally go. But I hope there's never a severe emergency over there, because you won't be able to get emergency vehicles there unless they just plow through the parents that are sitting in line. And it's not necessarily their fault, but I kind of hold it on the school. It was fine the first few years when they had that, because they would line everybody up on that fairly wide pad behind, and it kept them off the street. Because the problem in the morning is they're waiting to drop kids off, and I understand that, but whatever.
It's through the intersection. I mean, the four-way stops, people are sitting right in the middle of it.
Well, the four-way stop moves traffic on through as long as it can get, but there's,
It's stopped there.
yeah, there, as long as there's not somebody stopped on the other side. I agree. Yep. I'm sorry. Had to vent. Just a little bit.
Does anybody have any other discussions about this?
Yep. All right. Give me a motion.
Motion to approve?
I have a motion to to recommend the approval of an application for a special use permit at KO Storage of Ozark for a boat, vehicle, or self-storage facility at 909 North College Avenue. I have that motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann,
Aye.
Commissioner Pennell,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, next item is business is other business. Sub D pre 22-002, possible vote to recommend the approval of a preliminary plat for Old Savannah Place Phase 4, a subdivision consisting of 29.5 acres located at East Williamsburg Walk and South Farm Road 89.
Old Savannah LLC has requested review and approval of a preliminary plat of approximately 29.5 acres, Old Savannah Phase 4, consisting of 101 residential lots zoned single-family high-density residential, streets, and infrastructure. Preliminary plats are reviewed for their conformance with the following criteria to review that the development in the proposed location will not endanger the public health or safety, will not injure the value of adjoining property or abutting property, will be in conformity with the comprehensive plan, transportation plan, zoning code, water system master plan, wastewater system facility plan, or other plans officially adopted by the City Council, and will be in harmony with the area in which it is located. Preliminary plats are reviewed by the city planner and by the engineer in conformance with the requirements of Chapter 410 of Republic's Municipal Code, the comprehensive plan, and all applicable city-adopted codes and regulations. The property subject to this preliminary plat application is comprised of approximately 29.5 acres of land located in the intersection of West Williamsburg Walk and South Farm Road 89. The property is zoned appropriately for the proposed plat, single-family high-density residential. The following paragraphs contain brief analyses of the application's conformity with the preliminary plat review criteria identified above. The referenced plat contains 101 lots, each with a minimum lot size of 7,000 square feet. The preliminary plat also consists of streets, open space, and detention area. The preliminary plat proposes 3 new local street connections. The first is a connection to South Farm Road 89 from East Charlton Street. The second is a connection to East Williamsburg Walk by South Montgomery Avenue, and the third is a connection to Williamsburg Walk by South Appomattox Avenue. New public streets will be dedicated to the city during the final platting process. The applicant submitted a traffic impact study. The TIS took into account full build-out of phases 2, 3, and 4 of Old Savannah in its analysis. It was determined that no traffic improvements were merited by the increased trips generated by the subdivision. The reference parcel is not currently connected to municipal utilities. Development of the property will require connection to the city's water and sanitary sewer systems. The development will be served through a looped water main system with connections coming across Williamsburg Walk along Montgomery Avenue, an 8-inch, and Appomattox Avenue a 10-inch. The development will require the construction of a new lift station along the southern property line behind Lot 15. The sanitary sewer system will flow to the newly constructed lift station and then to the Schuler Creek lift station before traveling to the wastewater treatment facility. The water and sewer system currently have the capacity to serve the potential development. The preliminary plat of Old Savannah has been platted for the construction of 101 single-family residential lots and associated infrastructure, including public streets and sidewalks, public water and sanitary sewer mains, and stormwater detention. The subject parcel does not contain a special flood hazard area. The subject parcel contains one identified sinkhole contained on a single common area, which is located between lots 91 and 92. This common area will be maintained by the homeowners association. A sinkhole analysis completed by the applicant will be reviewed by the city during the infrastructure permitting process. Development of the property requires compliance with section 410-700, sinkholes and karst features of the Republic Municipal Code, which requires a 30-foot setback from the sinkhole rim for development. The preliminary plat contains two stormwater detention areas. One is located on the north side of Charlton Street between lots 86 and 79. The second is located in the southern portion of the phase along Charlton Street between lots 15 and 16. The stormwater detention areas are designed to control the release of stormwater attributable from the development. The plat contains a conceptual layout of the detention area. The area will be designed to mitigate existing conditions to reduce the amount of post-development flows to less than pre-development flows. The first stormwater detention area collects outflow from the surrounding lots and conveys it into the second stormwater detention area, which detains stormwater from the remainder of the Old Savannah Phase 4. The stormwater exits the property to the south. A stormwater report will be reviewed by the TRT during infrastructure design review. The stormwater detention area and all open space common area will be maintained by a homeowners association. The design of the streets, sidewalks, water and sanitary sewer systems, and stormwater detention will be reviewed and permitted during the infrastructure permitting process. Staff considers the proposed preliminary plat in general conformity with the requirements for preliminary plats and is recommending approval of the application.
Thank you, Chris. This isn't a hearing, right? Okay, what do you guys want to know? Looks like a lot of houses on the other side of town.
Is someone here from Savannah?
It's not a hearing. It's a plat, so we're discussing that.
Okay.
Layout. I assume that the knuckles here, at the end are satisfactory. I ask the question is, every time we have this, and you see these kind of configurations, can a fire truck get turned around in that? That's the fire equipment.
I do want to say that we do have a representative from the applicant if there are any questions.
I do have a question. So as a relatively new resident of Republic, as I look to most of the land that's being converted into neighborhoods, it's mostly farm fields. Occasionally there are places that are full of beautiful trees. Do you have any considerations for anything that's already there when developing this land? Or is the mantra we clear it and build?
The city doesn't have a particular mantra with regards to that.
Sorry, that was a question for the developer.
Oh.
Good evening, Dane Seiler, and I'm actually with CJW. I'm not necessarily a developer, I guess, but in general, to answer your question, you know, whenever you do put a development in, you do take into consideration the topography of the land. I mean, that's an important piece of any development. A lot of times, especially with the subdivision, you're trying to follow the existing ground as much as possible. That saves on costs from bringing in extra dirt or material to try and build roads. So becomes sometimes a challenging commercial development, of course, to take into some of the features of the existing ground just because of the sheer mass that you need and the type of things you need for a commercial development. But for a subdivision like this, really to do it cost effectively for developers, we do take into consideration the topography. Likewise, that does try to take into consideration some of the vegetation there on the property. Now, sometimes to provide all the utilities and things, we do have to, remove additional vegetation there in order just to provide all the amenities that we do with the subdivision. But I guess to answer your question, we do try to take those type of things into consideration when we are putting together plans for something like this.
I ask personally because I drive by this piece of property every day, and on the northwest corner, there's a tree. I don't know if it's 75, 100 years old. You might know what I'm talking about. It's right there, almost where the Circle Drive is, at the top left, right there.
Yeah, I think I do know the one you're talking about.
It's beautiful. I just ask if as you think about how you build, if those are considerations. So.
For sure, but I will say that sometimes it's hard to miss even the beautiful ones because sometimes it just doesn't work out. But we do definitely try and consider those type of things.
Okay.
Any other observations, questions, thoughts?
I do have a picture of it. It's pretty, isn't it? Be ashamed to tear it down.
Fair motion?
Motion to approve.
Okay, I have a motion to approve the recommendation, no, I'm sorry, a motion to approve the preliminary plat of Old Savannah Phase 4, a subdivision consisting of 29.5 acres located at East Williamsburg Walk and South Farm Road 89. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner Pinnell,
Aye.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Mann.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Next item of business is citizen participation. If there's anyone still left here that wishes to come forward and talk to us on something that has not been a subject of any of the three matters that we've taken up tonight, please come forward, tell us who you are, and tell us what you want. Not getting any takers. Ever popular Community Development Department update.
I do have an update tonight for you. I would like to introduce our newest planner, Associate Planner Patrick Ruiz. He's been with us for approximately 3 weeks, I think. He just graduated from graduate school in Salt Lake City, and we are so happy to have him. Tonight, of course, is his first meeting. He will become an integral part of the staff participation and running the actual meeting over the course of the next couple of months.
And I thought he was taking notes on who was being naughty and nice.
Welcome.
That too.
Is that it? Concise, to the point, timely, perfect. I would encourage a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Commissioner DeBrava,
Aye.
Commissioner Ellis,
Aye.
Commissioner